Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Dr. Soul Brother here with another program with some remedies to help cure you of your ills. And yes, you heard that intro right. And this is as it relates to April Chapman and Vince Everett Ellison. I'm going to say that again. That is as it relates to April Chapman and Vince Everett Ellison, who are possessed by the devil. Again, April Chapman and Vince Everett Ellison are possessed by the devil. Yeah, listen up. I'm talking to both y'all, April Chapman and Vince Everett Ellis. Yeah, and that clip right there, that's applicable to you. That's the role that you play. So we're gonna get into it. Um, there's a lot of anti-blackness out here, and it's clear, or should be clear, that that is what both Chapman and Ellison represent. They're both anti-black. Period. And they claim to be Christian, which they are not. They are possessed by the devil. How dare you get on your platforms and be on a mission, if you will, to go in on black folk, even when black folk are wrong in a situation, you will exploit that, exploit it, and have no problem talking about them and have no smoke for white folks. None. Um, it's clear by now. Not and it's not just those two. I mean, those two are in this topic, but they are reflective of others who are on the wrong side of history. The wrong side of history. Vince Everett Ellison. I'm gonna start with him because he's a little older, barely in his 60s, from the South, from Tennessee, who incidentally was born the very year of the March on Washington. And he throws shade on the civil rights movement and, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The nerve of you. The nerve. Who do you think you are, man? You out of control. Well, guess what? Other people might not be going, but I'm going after your hide. Yeah, I'm going after you. I'm talking about you right now. And I'm telling you, from the other people who are under the sound of my voice right now, don't listen to him. This dude is dangerous. And so is April Chapman. She claims to be a Christian. You ain't no Christian girl. If anything, you're an apostate. A straight up apostate. You're a disgrace. Miss Bronx, uh, New York, although she is a transplant in Atlanta, Georgia, the very hometown of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That's a disgrace, man. Disgrace. And what's so jacked up, what's even worse, both of them got black spouses and got black children. Look at April Chapman with your black husband who about as crazy as you are. And your children. You got two girls and two boys. I believe two sets of twins. I feel sorry for them. I really do. Anybody who got parents like that, may God help them. We're at that point. Yes, I'm talking to you now. Are you gonna hear me? Okay. Um, this attacking Dr. King. Dr. King, while not a perfect man, and none of us are perfect, including you too. None of y'all perfect. But I tell you what, Dr. King had the best interest of his people and had the best interest of his country. You don't. The fact that you are a Trump follower strips you of any kind of credibility at all. It really does. Dr. King was a true patriot. Okay, he was a true patriot. You follow, both of y'all follow white nationalism. That's what you do. Dr. King didn't follow white nationalism. What Dr. King represented was the very opposite of what you're about. This suggestion that Dr. King destroyed the black family is fallacious. There is um, a film that uh, April Chapman has been helping. Vince Everett Ellison promote, and it's terrible. I actually, believe it or not, I actually saw the film, and I didn't like it. It was a hit piece on Dr. King. Um, this is just terrible. This dude has been with Tucker Carlson, um, just lambasting Dr. King. Then he goes around talking about, um, what do you say? White privilege doesn't exist and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you got white folks who point that out, and you're gonna try to debunk that. And I saw when you went after that young white girl in the audience. See, you didn't go after the right one, because see, you went after the right one, like a Tim Wise or a Jane Elliott or somebody else of that ilk. Um, they would have ripped you a new one, bruh. Well, the movie, will you uh go to hell for me? Yeah, I saw that. It was disgusting. Disgusting. When Dr. King said in his famous speech, I Have a Dream, when he talked about the Emancipation Proclamation being signed by um, then President Abraham Lincoln, and Dr. King pointed out that was 1863, and Dr. King pointed out 100 years later, which is 1963, in August of 1963, when he spoke, he said, the Negro is still not free. And he gonna say in the film, Ellison, you gonna say in the film that he realized that Dr. King had that wrong. No, he didn't. The only distinction that was made was that you were not on a plantation, chained up. But guess what? We were not free in the sense of there were things that we could not do. You had Jim Crow laws. So that's not true freedom. That's not true freedom. But And then this thing about Dr. King being a communist. He was not a communist. How could he have been a communist when the principles of, I mean, the whole thing, and there's so much to this. I gotta, let me calm down. This right here is just totally out of control. Anybody, I would urge you, you can. There's a book, a biography written about Dr. King. People talk about David Garrow bearing the cross and Taylor Branch's series, which I appreciate. I have all of that stuff. But I also have a book, a biography on Dr. King titled Let the Trumpet Sound: The Life of Martin Luther King Jr., written by the white author named Stephen B. Oates. Unfortunately, Mr. Oates passed away, I believe, 2021, somewhere thereabout, of cancer. May his uh, may his memory live on. May he rest in peace, because he did very good work with this book. That was published in 1982, by the way. So it's an old book, but uh, go check it out from the library. Maybe see the order it online. Do something. That's something that you need to have. Please just check that out. But anyway, um, it's clear when you go through this book that Dr. King was not a communist. He was not, by no stretch of the imagination. No stretch of the imagination was Dr. King a communist. Um, and it would have been a contradiction given the fact that you have a lot of communists who are atheists. And how could that have been for a man who was a Christian? But not only that, he was a Christian minister. Go figure. But anyway, let me get back to the point. Um, I'm talking about how you both purport to be Christians. However, that's a bold-faced lie, and the truth ain't in either one of you. Bold-faced lie. In fact, I would suggest strongly that you repent from what you're doing. And let's be clear. If either one of you, April Chapman or Vince Everett Ellison, had been around, to say, during the Reconstruction era, you would have been shunned and excommunicated among us. Our people would have dealt with you. There's no way you would have been allowed to run amok and talk mess like this. No, you're anti-black. Let's be clear. And I don't care if you do have black spouses, because there are a lot of people with black spouses who exhibit anti-blackness, and they do it with their children. And I'm gonna tell you something. There's a book. Just a side note. There's a book. I wish there's a way I could pull up the image, but all you have to do is get a book called Imperial Reckoning by Caroline Elkins. Uh, That book deals with the Mau Mau struggle. Well, we said, well, what does it have to do with the topic? My point is this: if you look at the cover of that book, it's clear that folks um, who you have to see the cover of the book for yourself, but if you look at it closely, you see the black brothers in Africa, in Kenya. Um, they are surrounded by a group of black folk with black men with weapons, rifles, and they were referred to as African um, loyalists. Although I make the argument that that term is really a misnomer because they were not loyal to African people. What they were loyal to colonialists. So I would make the case that the term should have been African colonialists. But anyway, that's just me. But the point is this: when you look at the picture, it's what sticks out for me is it's very symbolic of what they represent, and it's like you better not even move, or I'll blast you right here. And I'm saying that to say this: April Chapman, you and your husband, who's about as crazy as you are, you two are setting your children up for um down the road for them to be like that because you're setting them up with all that anti-blackness. You're setting them up to be guard dogs for white folks. Let's be clear. That's what you're doing, and that's extremely dangerous, and it's a disgrace. So yeah, if you had been around the Reconstruction era, you would have been shunned and excommunicated. Sure enough, and it's interesting how you automatically attacked Carmelo Anthony, that young brother in Texas, and your behavior goes something like this. Uh, you know how Malcolm X talked about the house Negro, field Negro. Well, in truth, and I say this with all due respect to Malcolm X, I heard what he was saying, and I agree with that up to a point. But here's the thing: it's not always that cut and dry, or was not always that cut and dry when it came to that status on the plantation. Because check this out: everybody who was in the field was not a revolutionary, and everybody who was in the house was not a race trader. Both represented a mixed bag. Let me say that again. Both represented a mixed bag. In other words, um, you had folks in the field who was down, then you had others who felt a loyalty to the master. And it worked the same way in the house. Mixed bag. And certainly there was no colorism, if you will, as it related to the house necessarily. But that's a topic for another day. Here's my point: there needs to be some nuance as it relates to that. Um, but there's no nuance when it came to the one that Malcolm X overlooked, and that was the yard Negro. The yard Negro was the one on the horse with the shotgun to keep the other slaves on the plantation in line. Well, guess what? That is what Vincent Everett Ellison, Brandon Tatum, that dude, oh my God, and others of that ilk. That's what y'all represent. Now, April Chapman, on the other hand, you know what you are? You'd have been a bed wench on the plantation, a straight up bed wench. You love Donald Trump down to his dirty drawers. You love white folks down to their dirty drawers. You do. You do. You can't get enough of them. That's why it's easy for you to go in on black folks. I heard you going in on Sexy Red. And let me be clear: I'm not a fan of Sexy Red. I'm not. But guess what? It's an excuse to go in on black folks even when we're out of pocket. But you got no smoke for white folks. None. You got no smoke for Marjorie Taylor Greene, Donald Trump, none of them. And they all from the gutter. From the gutter. And let me be clear, April Chapman, you don't fool me. You got a little hood in you, the hood streak. Push the right button and the hood come out you. You ain't fooling me, Miss So-called Christian girl. No, you just be able to put on some cologne and to cover up all that funk. Just that simple. Just that simple. I see you. I'm from the inner city, so I know what's up. Okay? But let me move on. Let me go to this. I think this is important. This is a quote from a famous man in our history and in our culture who was saying something I think is applicable as it relates to this. There's another class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public, having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles. They have uh, grown into the subtle habit of advertising these wrongs, partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. That came from Mr. Booker T. Washington. Yeah, Booker T. Washington. Now, you gonna tell me that that's not applicable as it relates to these clowns? It most certainly is. It most certainly is. You're gonna go in on Carmelo Anthony because he's black. Let's be clear. You're doing all of that anti-black stuff because we're black. No, you don't. You have a disdain. And by the way, that right there is anti-Christian, anti-Christian, anti-Christian. No, that's not what a Christian does. That's not what a Christian does at all. No, you're a disgrace to the Christian faith. Disgrace. Um, Here you are, both of y'all, benefiting from the work of Dr. King and the civil rights movement. And at this stage of the game, we cannot afford to have your voices on social media talking that stuff at this stage in the game when things are being pulled. Okay? And let me I'm not a preacher or nothing like that. But I think it's significant, very significant, that this be cited. Since these people claim to be Christian, you know the old saying: you put a dirty glass up against a clean glass, and you see the clean glass show up every time. Uh, Saint John chapter 8, verse 44: Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there's no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Then I'm gonna move on to First Corinthians chapter 5, verse 5. To deliver such an one unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus. Why is that significant? Because with your purposely putting out disinformation, you are leading people astray. You're leading our people astray. And I'm telling you right now, this man is not going to have that. I will do everything within my power to give. I will smack you down every chance I get because you're out of control. I'm not going to have that. I have our people's best interests at heart, and there's no way I can, as a human being, as a black man, and not only a black man, but a black man who has roots in this country, allow you, either one of you, and others of that, because it ain't just you two; it's a bunch of other people who do the same thing, and it's a problem. It's a problem. So I would encourage black parents. You got young children, you better really pull up and teach your children and lead them in the right direction. Because I'm telling you, there's a lot of misinformation in here, a lot of misinformation. All this gaslighting of your own, and never do that with white folks. Never. No, we can't have that. And that old film, um, will you go to will you go to hell with me or go to hell for me, whatever the exact title is. I saw that, and that was a disgrace. That's Vince um, Everett Ellison. And you see, um, April Chapman would help him do damage like that because, again, anti blackness is what is running, coursing through their brains. And they are determined. They do the dirty work for white folks. That's what you do. And your mouths have helped to make our situation worse than it already is. That's what you've done. No, you guys are not Christians. You're a disgrace to the faith. Disgrace. Disgrace. If I was related to either one of them, I would never want anybody to know that we can. Never. I would. You would be shunned and just straight ostracized. Terrible, terrible. No, this is bad, bad. Mm-mm. No, you, Vince uh, Ellison would have been the yard Negro on the plantation, and April Chapman would have been the bed wench. Let's be clear. Let's be real clear on this. Well, I'm not going to take up too much time, but I thought this is important because this is really troubling. To have this going on. No, no, we folks have got to speak up. You're out of control. And by the way, it's interesting. You won't talk to Eric Mason, Pastor Eric Mason. You won't talk to Jerome Gay or some of the other ones, and Damon Richardson and all those brothers. You won't talk to them, but yeah, you're gonna do a show where you're gonna talk about them. You see that what's got? Let's be clear. What's driving you is your anti-blackness that's um, coursing through your brain. You really despise black folk. You do. And if it were humanly possible, you would change from black to white. Like that movie where a white man became black, used something to make himself black temporarily. You would do the same thing in reverse. Only this time you would do it permanently. Permanently. No, no, I would never, never, ever, ever want. You're a disgrace to the faith. A disgrace. In fact, you're a disgrace to this culture. Mm-mm. No. No. So you need to keep Dr. King's name out your mouth. You need to keep the civil rights movement out your mouth and all that kind of stuff. And it's not enough for you to go in on those things that where you have churches that are out of line and all that. We get that. But your anti-blackness is what is pushing you. Is what is pushing you. And that's the part we cannot tolerate this. I know I won't tolerate it. Period. Period. Mm-mm. No. No. This is something that we just have to get we just cannot have. Okay?
I don't want no trouble. Toby be good nigga for massa. Good nigga.
Yeah. That's the role that you playing right now. This is a throwback. And it wouldn't surprise me that if folks dug deep in your family background, there was somebody on the plantation or plantations, because there's two of you, where somebody in your background was thinking just like that. Thinking just like that. And sold out folks on the plantation. No, no, we can't. So let's be clear. I'm putting the word out right now. Cease and desist. Cease and desist. No good. No good. So anyway, let me wrap this up. I didn't want to take too much time, but I felt compelled. One could even argue the spirit led me to do this because I'm not seeing enough pushback. But Dr. Soul Brother, he's gonna be all on your behind over this. So hit the like button, subscribe. If you like what you hear, um, comment. Like to hear your comments. Just as long as your comments are not out of control. Your comments are out of control, I will block you. I ain't got no problem doing that. You will be blocked. But I'd like to hear what you have to say. And until the next time, God bless.